legend, Ray Longo. How are you doing, my friend?
Yeah, really good. Really, thanks for having me on. Appreciate
Absolutely.
it.
We have a pleasure, man. TJ DeSantis, he's like, you got to get him on. You guys were unbelievable Saturday night after Woodley Burns, and I heard you said he worked you like a horse, but it was fun. It was great.
You know what it is? Normally I'm a night person, but I think it was like an hour and a half. I got done. I was like, this is the first time I ever watched fights and started taking notes. So I knew what I was talking about. Like, normally I just enjoy myself, have a good time. So I felt like it was actually work. My eyeballs were spinning by the end.
It's so funny too. We do so many podcasts. We've talked to so many people. We have talked to Anik and TJ and all of the fighters. We just talked Felicia Spencer just on the show, and we are starting to do like more fight cast of the night. And it's crazy. I don't know how those boys do it. You know what I mean? I'm on the camera for 4.5 straight hours, and it's like I need a bathroom break, or I just need to close my eyes break, or where's the peanuts? It's unbelievable.
Oh, without it, I agree with you 100%, man. Now you just put that into perspective. I wasn't even thinking of it like that. Yeah, I did an hour and a half, and I was dying. Poor Anik there for 8. One time I saw him do a whole show, then he did the after show. I was like, dude, that's got to kill you, man. At that point, you know.
And you can only smile so much and pronounce Cody Garbrandt so many times. So, but here we go. UFC 250. We're going to go all in on this card. I love it. First and foremost, it felt like this card in the last 10 days and a week has got a little bit bad press, a little bit of bad, people are like, really, this is the card? UFC 249 was one of those once-in-a-lifetime cards, and it was. But this card, to me, as a fight fan, I love it. There's so much future. There's the whole bantamweight divisions on this card almost. You have a title fight of the greatest female fighter ever and an upstart challenger. I love the card. How about you?
No, definitely good card. Obviously, I love it because I think Aljo probably should have been like even a co-main with a 5-rounder because I think this fight has huge implications. Right. And like you said, man, Amanda Nunes, just a phenomenal. What she's accomplished and the way she's gone about it is unquestionably the best women's MMA fighter to date. You know, doesn't get the press that Ronda got, and Ronda did her job. She was great for what she did, and she brought everything to the forefront. And you had your Misha Tates; they were all great. But this kid's fighting, and she's taking people out, and she's doing it against big names. And the way there's just in the fashion and the way she's finishing fights is phenomenal. You don't see that with women a lot, you know?
Right. I couldn't even agree more with you. Without Ronda, she really did open the lane for Amanda, and Amanda Nunes has ran through it, drove the F-150 right through it. Her last 3-4 years is unmatched. Amazingly, thread on this show is they always talk about the P for P, pound for pound. And, it's almost irrelevant at the end of the day. But I always think that Amanda Nunes doesn't get the credit. She's the greatest female fighter, and she is. But I can argue she's the greatest pound-for-pound fighter, male, female, any weight division right now. She's on a run.
No, yeah, she's got the Mike Tyson effect now. She's taking people out. It's not that she's winning. It's the way in which she's winning. It's very impressive. And to see a woman with knockout power like that is crazy. And even what she did to Cyborg is phenomenal. Nobody was ever able to do that. And everybody was always intimidated of Cyborg. She carried such a big reputation going into the octagon, but Nunes just ran right through her.
Absolutely. And two things before, we'll get into the main 5. And if you do want to hit on one of the prelims, we will. But you mentioned it, so I do want to hit that. Aljo, yeah, I agree with you. It's odd placement that they aren't the co-main event because everyone thinks it's the number one contender fight. It's a title eliminator, and Cody and Raphael, no, negative to them, but they're both on losing streaks, and it just seems weird that that's not the co. And like you said, I agree with you on another fight night card. This is a main event, but I love this as a co-main event underneath the title fight. I do.
Yeah. The thing with Aljo thing, it's funny. I shot some stuff with the UFC for him. So I thought he was on the countdown. So when the countdown came on, I started watching it with Cody Garbrandt. And like, again, not taking anything away from anybody, but I was like, we actually even shot some footage for this. So I'm surprised somebody made a decision somewhere along the line not to put it on. But I don't get it, man. I really don't get that, man. It's nice when they get behind you and push you, but this is a little weird, but you know what? I think Aljo's going to go out and make a statement. I think it's going to fuel him even, more than he's already fueled. So hopefully it's got a great ending to it, and they see the benefit of Aljo.
Right. And that was kind of my question. Did the fighters lose any luster there or not at all? They both know how vital, how critical this fight is for their careers and the division. There's no, hey, we should be or is there a little light up between their butt? They're like, guys, we're going to make sure we're going to prove to the UFC guys we should have been co-main event, Sandhagen and Aljo.
I can see Aljo saying that to Sandhagen.
Right.
I can see him. I think he feels that a little bit. But, look, you got to concentrate on the fight. Whether you got your right walkout music, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. You got to go in and fight. But I just thought it was surprising to me. I just thought it was a bigger fight than Garbrandt and Assuncao. I don't think, does anybody even care about that fight? I mean, it's going to be a good fight. I mean, I care about it, but not to the extent where you got two guys that are on great winning streaks. Aljo coming off an awesome performance against Munoz, and the other guy had Assuncao, and the other guy just beat Assuncao, and now he's fighting somebody else who's coming off of losses. It does look. It not only does MMA math not make sense, even MMA promotional math makes no sense to me.
There you go. I agree. And they're both younger, on the rise. Then it just makes no sense. But last question before we get into the last card is, it's at the Apex, no fans. As a coach, and if you had to communicate with your fighters about it, is it, guys, block it off? Do you feel better about it because maybe you can communicate better with your fighter? Or do you like sometimes the energy? Maybe Weidman does get a little bit boost off the energy of the crowd. What do you feel about having this fight with no fans? Does that hurt or help fighters?
I mean, look, it's up to the fighter what happens. But as a coach, it really is exciting when you got a crowd behind you. You know what I mean? It makes a big difference. And we could always communicate. Sarah doesn't even put a mic on. I'm always have the mic on. You would think he has the mic on because he's so loud that you could hear him through. I don't care how crowded the arena is. The only time it was a factor that I've ever been in that octagon, not in the octagon, but coaching on the octagon, was in Montreal with the rematch with St. Pierre. If I tell you, Dave, you couldn't hear Matt. If I'm standing 2 feet from him, could not hear me. That's how crazy that crowd was. So that was surreal, and that was the only time it was like, wow, there was really no I mean, you couldn't hear a goddamn thing. It was crazy. So I think Aljo and those guys, they can hear us no matter how big the crowd is or small. This, obviously you hear all the things. People listening to DC, they're listening to what the guy, what the timekeeper's saying to his to whoever's next to him. It's crazy. It's a wide open room. And, I did the show and we had minimal people when me and Matt did the Tough Six. So it's a pretty cool thing. It's like coaching somebody in sparring. It's awesome. So I don't think it's going to be an effect on the fight. But I think as a fan, there's nothing more than when a big shot's landed or it's going back and forth and the crowd's going crazy. It's great. The ambiance really does add to the excitement of the show for sure. Oh. So, but I think from a fighting standpoint, I think they're all good with everything.
Imagine Aaron Boone's home run in, the 2000, and there's no one jumping in the crowd at Yankee Stadium. It just wouldn't be the same. But here we go.
Without a doubt.
We're going into it. The Sugar Show is back. We got O'Malley versus a vet fight. I think it's overlooked too. I would like this even higher on the card as well, but I love it to start off the show. O'Malley, Wineland, another bantamweight fight. I think all the money right now is on the Sugar Show, but I'm telling you, it's one of those things I never like to look over a really, really, vet, like someone who's been in the WEC, someone been in the UFC for a long time. So I'm interested. I really want to see if O'Malley takes that next step versus Wineland.
Yeah, I agree with this. Is a great fight. And I wouldn't, you almost kind of said it though. I definitely wouldn't overlook Eddie, but the fact that he's been around so long might be, at this point, obviously it's not in his favor, but at one point in time, I think this fight would 100% been unbelievable. So I hope Eddie brings it. I hope we get to see, O'Malley tested. And I'm excited for that fight, man. I think it's going to be great, but I wouldn't overlook Eddie Violin in this fight. I definitely wouldn't.
Me too. And sometimes, those veterans, when you fight another veteran, it's another fight. But I feel like this one, I think Eddie's going to pop up. It's a little like, whoa, I can stop this O'Malley train. Like Sugar's all over the place. He's on posters and in Vegas. Like he's one of the trademark guys. And I feel like Eddie, sometimes the guys with the long tooth, they're like, hey, we're going to show these young pucks a thing or two, So I'm interested. I'm very intrigued in this fight. So I cannot wait. It's a great way to start off the pay-per-view.
Now, I agree 100% with you, but I think the UFC has a really good idea with their matchmaking. So I think they feel very confident in what's going to happen. That's what scares me. Right? If we knew Eddie Violin, we could get a good gauge on what was going to happen. But at one point in time, I'm saying that guy was a dangerous guy. You had to respect him. He's got great hands, good movement. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Do we know how old Eddie is right now?
36, I thought. Let me two buttons.
Yeah, for the lighter guys, that starts getting a little up there.
35, 35 will be 36 next month. So right there.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm excited for that fight. I think you're right. That fight should have been way up higher, and I don't know. We'll see. I think he's going to get a little test. I really believe that.
Me too. It's a great fight. I love it. Way to start off the pay-per-view. Next fight, too, another fight that's really overlooked, really important for that the division, which is, one of the hottest divisions in all of MMA, 170 welterweights. Neil Magny, who's just an absolute stud, kind of guy is always overlooked on the card somehow, some way, versus Rocco Martin. And it's a fight of styles. That's what to me, this whatever style wins on that night will probably win the fight. But I love me some Neil Magny, so I'm leaning that way. How about you, Coach?
Magny had a great outing last time. I think Rocco's on I think he's on a good trajectory. I'm going to go with Rocco on that.
Okay.
I think he's a little. I think the power is going to be the difference in that. He's pretty good, Rocco Martins, man. I think that's going to be a great fight.
Right. He won 5 out of his last 6. The only loss there was Damian Maia, and that's no shame at all, losing to a Hall of Fame.
And exactly. And Magny had a great outing last time too, coming off that suspension, right?
Right, he did. Who was that? It was. He looked marvelous. It was a unanimous. Yeah. I'm hitting it up right now, Coach. Neil Magny. Wow, so many wins. Oh, this is Zhang Wei Li, like the Zhang Wei Li.
Yeah, right. He made that look easy. Yeah, against the.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That was a great fight for him. So, I don't know. I'm leaning towards Rocco on that fight.
Okay,
man.
I like it. I like it. I'll
like
take
you
a
said,
look.
no, I lost to Damian Maia because he could beat anybody in his range.
Right.
There's no harm done in that at all.
Especially Rocco fought Maia 3-4 years ago. And to me, that was when Maia's at his peak. It was a little bit he had all the information, all the knowledge of all those fights, but still had it in the chin and still had it athletic ability. 3-4 years later, still one of an all-timer, but, not what he once was 4 years ago. So
exactly.
He fought Maia at his peak.
That's going to be a great fight. There is really good fights on this. Now that you're saying, I didn't even realize it when you started the show. Now I'm starting to go, man, this fight, I'm starting to get amped a little bit already.
I can't wait. Saturday, UFC 250 pay-per-view. You're welcome, UFC. We're selling pay-per-views for you. Here we go. This is probably the highlight fight, of course, talking to you, Coach. Aljo, we got Sterling here, and we got Cory Sandhagen. It's got to be a title contender. It's got to be who's next for that. Looks like they made Peter Yan versus Jose Aldo, which I love. Great fight.
Great fight.
Great fight. But the winner of this has to be next. A Sterling Peter Yan fight would be absolute gold for MMA fans across the world. So I'm all in with you. You're on it. I got to go all the way Sterling on this fight.
Yeah, listen, he's coming off what a performance against Pedro Munoz, who's as tough as nails. But Aljo stayed in the pocket with him. He showed a lot of everything in that fight. His activity level was off the charts. And I think you're going to see a similar, they're totally different body structures, Sandhagen and Munoz, but we brought in some really good looks, some tall guys that could really fight really good. So Aljo, I don't think he's not going to have any surprises in there. I think he's going to be used to the pressure that Sandhagen brings. And Aljo, I don't think is a guy you could train for. He's so fucking unorthodox. It's crazy. He'll throw 10 kicks in a row at you. he's a different cat. His ground game is really fucking solid. And man, I'm excited for that fight. It's going to be great. And Sandhagen's, he's on the roll. He's beat Lineker. He beat Assuncao his last couple of fights. His boxing looks great. He's relaxed. You know, he wants to be in there. He's young. There's a good fight, man. It's going to be a great fight.
It is. And I, as a fan and someone who now, a media member of all MMA, I love, when it's a little bit of a chess match, also with the brutality of the knockout potential, and the both men are absolute athletes as well too inside the cage. Yeah. But I think the first 2 minutes are going to be very, very chessy, to kind of see distance and feel each other out. To me, this is just one of those fights. As fight fans, I am absolutely amped for this. This is, both guys are on these absolute rise. This can easily be for the championship, and no one would, mirror about it.
Without a doubt.
Can't wait. I can't wait to see it. And I feel like after the first round, if it goes after the first round, I think you're going to see, what kind of style took over, who kind of felt the distance a little bit more. And I think you're going to have a really good feel after the first round of this fight. That's my 2 cents.
Listen, you're dead on today. I agree 100% with you. We kind of game planned it like that too. So I agree. We'll see who can impose their style on the other guy. Going to be very important.
And with you having, Sterling and the corner and everything of that nature, would you at all want to make a last-second phone call, a last-second text? Hey, guys, maybe just keep your eye on this or anything like that? Or on fight day, you want to stay away, and I know you want to be there so damn bad, but is it just kind of letting them do their thing and trusting in the process of the, Sarah and everyone else out there?
Yeah, well, Sarah's not going to be there either.
Oh,
so Al's going to be – no. Sarah's really the reason why I'm not. I mean, Sarah, I think, is protecting me. I know this sounds crazy to people, but I'm getting a weird feeling. It's the first time in my life I've ever had my age thrown in my face, I think. But Sarah didn't want to go because he knows if he went, then I would want to go, and he really doesn't want me going. So he's a good dude, man. I've known the guy for 25 years, and he's taking this shit more serious than I am, I think. And it's a nice feeling, but in the same vein, it's just weird because I want to be there, and I wish I could be there, but we're ever on the side of safety and whatever. We're gonna be cautious. But so there'll be phone calls made that day. I might not make them to Aljo, but I'll make them to either Al or the other guy in the corner for sure. Right. I mean, I'm in constant contact with those guys, so if I see anything or I think of anything, we're constantly tweaking stuff as the days go on. So
of course. Yeah. It's like any football coach. You see something, it's like, wait a second, look at the foot there, whatever, So
even Dave, I'll give you another thing. So I get a call last night. The octagon is smaller, obviously, than the regular octagon. So that plays into a little bit. And I had the guy tell me if it was the same size that Aljo spars in. And he says, yeah, it's kind of like the same. So we have a little smaller octagon than the regulation. So I figure, all right, that's good. He's used to it. It won't be smaller than that. I felt a little better. But Aljo likes to move. He likes to mix it up. So, even in boxing, how many times they fought over 24 square foot ring, 20 square, 60, for the bangers, they don't want to move. There's certain guys that can't handle movement. They just want to get in there and cut you off, and they want to fight in the phone booth. So that was interesting. I didn't realize it was going to be that much smaller, but so I think it won't make a difference because we have an octagon in the gym like that, so it should be good.
Right. Saturday with Woodley Burns, Michael Bisping all night long was literally calling it the banger octagon. He goes, it's just so small. And, you get a little bit of running or a little bit of forward movement. Like you're on them already. Like you're in the phone. Yeah. So, in that 30-footer, there's so much room. It's almost people don't recognize that, the common fan, they don't recognize how humongous the cage is, on that 30-foot, in a big arena. But this is at the apex, 25 feet. And it sounds, weird that you would say that, but it is. You're very true. Spot on yourself. It's a different game. It's a
different game. Right. And it could actually, even though Aljo likes to move, it could work to his advantage because his wrestling, I think he'll be a step ahead of him in the wrestling and the jiu-jitsu. So that could play into a little thing too. So we'll see what happens. Makes for a lot of interesting conversation, and it's only a couple of days, and we're gonna find out the answer. That's what I love about fighting. Can only talk for so long.
Sooner or later, the results come in, sooner or later. All right, so the co-main event, we got Cody and Raphael. We've kind of talked about it, but that's kind of predict. Both guys coming off of losing streaks. Cody was at top of the game. One of the best performances against Dominic Cruz. The rivalry with TJ Dillashaw didn't go his way. He had the other knockout loss. He's only fought 3 times in the last 4 years. So this is a return of Cody, or this is maybe a goodbye of Cody. So this is a humongous fight. And then Raphael is one of those guys, too. He's just been around forever. Like, no one's recognized, he's got like 18, 19 UFC fights, always a top 5, top 10 guy. He's on a 2-fight losing streak, too, and he's getting a little bit up there. So this is, again, a very vital for the division, not as much as Sterling and Sandhagen, but this is an important fight, really important.
Yeah. Yeah, one thing about Assuncao, I mean, he's just been consistent. If you look at him, it is what it is. He's not the most exciting guy, but I even know when Aljo fought him, he is tricky. And again, those tricks start to wear out as you get older. And again, he's not a big guy, so yeah, I don't know. And me and TJ touched on this too. Even with Cody, once you're the champ and you lose, it's just hard to get back on track. There's something psychological that it's kind of a mind fuck, I believe. And I think that's what Assuncao is going through also, because he should have had a title shot somewhere. He was on a big run at one point. He never got it. I don't think they thought he was exciting enough. And now he's on a downward trajectory, which sucks for him because he never had that shot. Right. And he's got to work his way up, and I think that's going to be nearly impossible. So, man, it's a good matchup, man. I don't know which way to go. Do we have any odds on that fight?
It's Cody's a -140 favorite.
All right, so they made him a decent favorite. That's
love him. The females are putting the money on Cody.
Yeah. Cody, he's a good dude. And I know he's been training with Mark, so Mark's going to come in with a great game plan. So I guess my money's on Cody for that fight. But I kind of feel bad for Assuncao because I think he's been in the sport for so long. He had his run, and he never really capitalized on it. And I don't think that was his fault. But I think he's going to have a really rough time making his way back up the ladder, which is unfortunate because he's a nice kid too. Yeah,
I hear the same things. And you're right. I kind of looked it up just real quick. He's had 3 6-fight winning streaks, which in the MMA game, you win 2 or 3 in a row. It's like, hey, coach, everything's good. 6 in a row, 3 times, unbelievable. Yeah, just never got over the hump. At the end of the day, it's an entertainment business, and the UFC, especially over the last 3, 4, 5 years, has leaned a little bit that way. Brock Lesnar, Ronda Rousey's, Connor's. So it is what it is, It just
and
is.
even more with WME or whatever, whatever the name of the company. You know what I mean? It's just crazy how that goes like that. But yeah, he's a little bit too much of a counter puncher. Not the most exciting guy, even with all of his fights. But we'll see, man. But you're right, to have 2 times do a 6-fight win. That's not easy, man.
Oh no,
that's not easy.
Incredible. Here we go, main event. We did hit on this as well. And the funny thing is, so right before you called in, I actually had she just called in because I live here in Daytona Beach, Florida, and they train in Orlando. And one of my good friends is Megan Cawley, who's training partners with Felicia Spencer, who's been training for last 2-3 months. So I just talked to her. I literally got her on the podcast on the intro for this. And she is, and I just had Felicia on, and I talked, and this is why I really wanted you on, Ray, because you're with Weidman, you know what I mean? And had Matt humongous upsets, which Felicia's trying to do. But every time I talk to Felicia and I talk to Megan, they're not worried about the upset. They're worried about they're supremely confident on their skills, on her skills. So when you go in there as a coach, are you kind of trying to Rudy them up and Rocky them up? Hey, GSP and Anderson, some of the greatest ever. Are you trying to say, hey, let's shock the world? Or are you on the other side? Hey, forget them. They are men. We're going to do what we do. Matt, we're going to do what you do. Chris, we're going to do what you do. And should Felicia just worry about her? What side of the coin are you on with that?
Yeah, well, it's not a rah thing for sure. I mean, with each of those things, it was, with Matt, we knew that George thought he wanted to take that fight to the floor because Matt had to, at the time, Matt was, jiu-jitsu and George was also training at Henzo's at the time. So Matt is kind of a legend over there. You know what I mean? So you're training with guys that are probably tapping you that are telling you that Matt tapped. You know what I mean? You know the way that thing works. So we knew he thought that fight wanted to go to the floor, and we had no intentions ever of going to the floor in that fight. And I think that was the tricky part. I saw Matt was just starting to come into his striking. He had a vicious right hand. Saw him break a guy's jaw with headgear on. We brought in the right sparring partners. So, no, we went in there. It wasn't no rah-rah. It was like, if he stands in front of you for too long, he's going to get knocked out. He had that. I thought Matt had that type of power. And I thought with the fact that George thought that fight was going to go to the floor, he probably was, maybe his attention would be diverted. And that really was the bottom line. But Matt had huge power going into that thing that really nobody knew, I don't think. I don't think at that point nobody knew. But so it wasn't a rah-rah-rah thing. You're playing to the guy's strengths, and there should be a little strategy. And even with Chris, I knew Chris could strike, but his wrestling would offset, some of Anderson's stuff. And the Anderson fight was a little trickier because, man, Anderson was a highlight reel of disaster before that fight, so psychologically it was tough. But, Chris was in the right spot mentally, man. He believed in himself, and we knew that one fight was going to be tricky, but I didn't know if I saw it going like that, but God bless him that it did, and he did it again the second time. So I just think it was one of those stylistic things where Anderson, like 9 out of 10 times, Weidman's going to beat him. You know what I mean? So, so I think with Felicia Spencer, she sounds like she's in a really good spot. Like you said, we had her on with TJ, and look, we know that even with the Cyborg fight, there's no lack of heart in that girl. So she's coming forward. It's a tough task, I think, because Amanda is, not only does she hit hard, she's accurate too. So,
and she doesn't waste punch. She doesn't waste aggressiveness.
I mean, if I think there's an advantage in this fight, I think maybe cardio-wise, I think Spencer has to try to really grind her out, make her work while taking some damage, which isn't going to be easy. And then I'd like to see where that fight ends up. You know what I mean? Like, can she withstand that? Can she get the fight to the floor? Can she make it work? There's a lot of ifs. So I don't know. I'm excited for the fight though, because I like Spencer's attitude. I believe she's going in there totally unintimidated by the body language that I get from listening to her talk, and I don't think that means that she's going to be careless. But she will be hitting that fight. So I think her chin's been tested with Cyborg, which I like. And I think, she showed no sign of, wanting to quit or whatever. She's game. So this is going to be interesting, man. It's another good fight. And she's the naturally bigger girl, so we'll see what happens.
Absolutely. All that you said, ditto. I definitely think, she's a featherweight. I think she wants the mantle of the featherweights on her back and on her shoulders. I think she can handle it all the extra activities and stuff. I think Felicia's fine with. The last thing I would say, and I don't want to be long-winded on it, and I really appreciate your time, Ray. I picked Gaethje going into the Ferguson fight, and everyone's like, why? I'm like, no styles. I'm like, outside of the octagon, guys. Tony Ferguson was going to fight Khabib for the 5th time. It didn't come. It was going to happen. Then it was going to be on this date, and then that didn't happen. Then it was going to be in California, and then Ferguson actually made weight, and then it was in Jacksonville. It was all this noise and mess, and I feel like, to be honest, there's some with Amanda as well. She's the one that kind of got pulled out because of the corona pandemic. Felicia was still moving forward. Amanda's girlfriend's pregnant. There's a lot of that. Hey, I got 4 kids. I know what that can do to the human being as well. So I think there's a lot of noise, Ray. And I think Felicia is locked in, zoned in on Amanda Nunes. She knew this fight was happening for 6 months. And everyone I talked to, and I just talked to Megan Cawley, her training partner, she has a really good mindset going into this fight. If she can just that 45-second volcano, if she can just get over it, and not a lot of females can, if she can get over it, I really think she's a good dog to bet on. I think Felicia's got a little bit in the 4th or 5th, so I'm so pumped for this as well.
I think I kind of blanked out after you said you had 4 kids. I don't know if I was listening after that. I mean, no, how the heck do you do that? I have 2 kids and it's crazy. That's insane. But you're right, though. I like where you're looking at, because I always think it's the behind-the-scenes shit and who's going through problems in their life or who's doing this. It does add up, and I didn't think of it that way, but I always try to look at it that way too. But man, I don't know. You might be onto something with that. I like that, but I don't think it was the same psychological thing as Ferguson. Those 5 times and training for a guy that was such a dominant wrestler, and then fighting a guy who's such a dominant striker. That fight, I just think Ferguson should have never even accepted that fight. I think he should have waited. I think he got talked into that. They probably made some extra money, but Gaethje, the only way Gaethje was going to lose that fight if he gassed out. Like Ferguson normally could take a lot of punishment and then break you down, but he, when Trevor made that adjustment in the corner to just take a little off your punches, it might not sound like a lot, but he started to relax. They had a great rapport in the corner where I think Ferguson, I think they left him. He was almost on his own in the corner. And he just, the things that normally got him to where he was just weren't working, and there was no plan B, and that was a problem. But I would have really loved this. That's why I say, like, this game is so weird. I think the fight everybody really wanted to see was Ferguson and Khabib, and God bless Gaethje stepped in. He was ready to go on 2 days' notice. He ended up getting a couple more weeks, but man, I tell you what, man, that was definitely dangerous when they announced that fight for sure. Yeah. So,
like you said, there's so much outside of it. It's more than just 15 minutes in the cage. There's so much with coaching and team and how's your life going and family and I have a family. So we had 2 boys, right? And 8-year-old, 3-year-old, and they're wrestlers, and they're going to be studs, welterweight champion in 2035, I think. But we wanted the girl. So we're pushing for a girl. The wife wanted the girl. I wanted the girl. So on New Year's Eve, we don't have one girl. We have 2 girls. So we got twin girls, a part of the 4 kids.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
The house is full.
You're set. You're set now.
Done. Now I just got to talk.
Yeah, because family problems, if you're going through stuff, nothing's worse than that. I don't care. I don't know if you can fight through that. You know what I mean? So I like the fact that you're looking into that. I don't know if it's the same as the Ferguson thing, but again, the beauty of fighting is a couple of days we're going to find out. Right.
Here we go. UFC 250 Saturday night, guys. ESPN. Make sure you order the pay-per-view. Ray Longo, appreciate your time. Are you talking to TJ after UFC 250 as well?
He didn't say anything, so as of right now, I'm going to say no.
Okay. Well, we can't wait to hear you back on there. We'll hear you back on with Anik and Florian. Always love you having on being on that show. But Ray, man, we appreciate your time like always, brother. We'll talk to you real soon.
It was a real pleasure, Dave. Good luck with everything, and hope